Uganda mubakunja mu
kampani yaffe bagiyita Bantu Establishment esangibwa Kitintale niwe bamuyita Madamu Esther. Bane mutuyambe tuli Saudi Arabia n'akatundu tetukamanyi. Yonna wonna baatulookingidde abantu bonna wasibe tewali wetufulumira
ezigizizo zonna
zigule teri yadde esi tetukyassa
abantu bakiriyalinga tudde Uganda office netukwata ngeyagala tujjamu sente tusuubule baatujjeko tebatuwa mmere esi baazijjeeko tetulina kyetulina newoobuza kyewakola nga tolina.
What's good, family? Welcome to SN Media. Kindly subscribe to get more updates. Arab families pay a lot of money to get a housemaid, and they claim the money back if the housemaid doesn't stay long. As a maid, you have no voice. The deal is between the agency and the Arab family. The agency is then paid and they have a contract with you, but it is fake. For example, the contract might say you work for 9 hours per day, but it's not true. They see us as slaves. African women head for the Gulf despite abuse fears or their local government's reform promise to make domestic work safer in a region notorious for labor trafficking, but the truth, they are not working. Domestic servants are often Philippines, Indians, Ugandans, Kenyans, and others from developing countries. The treatment of the maid depends on who the maid works for. Some Arabs are good and others are bad. From sources across the web, Arab countries that employ Africans include Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt, Oman, Jordan, Dubai, the city found in the United Arab Emirates. SN Media brings you the hidden life that housemaids pass through in Arab countries. Domestic helpers shall be provided with necessary healthy care. The domestic helpers are entitled to be paid sick leave with a medical report for a period not exceeding 30 days every year. But this is not true. Housemaids in Arab countries work even when sick. To compensate the domestic worker for overtime work, the domestic worker has the right to submit a complaint against the employer to the Department of Domestic Labor. After studying the complaint, the department may obligate the employer to pay fair compensation of no less than double the wages agreed in the contract. But it is totally false. No allowance is given to them and they are forced to work every day. As per Article 4 of the Regulations for Domestic Workers, every helper has the right to have an employment contract with the following provisions: monthly salary, the type of work and duties, duration of the probation period, obligations and rights of both the concerned parties, the contract duration and extension clauses. But this contract is always breached. A housemaid has the right to refuse a work not written in the employment contract as per Article 2 of the Regulations for Domestic Workers. Moreover, the worker also has the right not to be assigned any work that is risky or may be harmful to their health or safety. The employer cannot sublet the domestic worker or allow them to work for their own account. But once the housemaid abides by this law, she might lose her life because an Arab will think it's an act of disobeying them. As per Article 7(3) of the Regulations for Domestic Workers, the employer is supposed to pay the wage that has been agreed upon at the end of each Hijil month unless both parties agree differently to this on the written contract. Unsurprisingly, many are not paid for some good months, yet they left their home countries for greener pastures, and in the end, Arabs will have to accuse them of any big crime to avoid the expenses of salary payment. The helper employed in a household in any Arab country must be given at least 9 hours of rest per day as per Article 7(6) of the Regulations for Domestic Workers, but this never happens. All helpers are also eligible to get 1 day off every week, as per Article 8 of the regulations for domestic workers, but Arabs always force these African maids to work every day. The probation period, both parties may agree to place the domestic worker on a probation period that cannot exceed 90 days as per Article 5. During the probation period, both parties have the right to terminate the contract without any fine or penalty on behalf of the domestic worker. It is also not permitted to put the same domestic worker on probation more than once unless both parties agree to that. The final exit ticket. Article 15. If the employment contract has expired or terminated by the employer for any illegal reason, the employer will bear the entire cost to send the domestic worker back to his home country, including the final exit ticket. But this doesn't happen at all, and the agency companies have never complained about this issue. Why do Arabs only mistreat female housemaids, yet they incur a lot of money to transport them from their home countries to Arab countries? The country that mistreats housemaids mostly is Saudi Arabia. Unfortunately, some families mistreat housekeepers here in Saudi. Not all of them are like this. I will just try to explain the reasons why they abuse them. One thing to know about Arab men in general and Saudi men in specific is that they don't help out with house cleaning, cooking, and taking care of the children. They see this as a woman's job that some might even get offended if they were told to help out washing the dishes or wiping the floors. Women's education started in the early 70s. By the 80s, a lot of women were having pressure balancing between home, housewives, and education, then work. Man of the house is refusing to take any part in the house. Eventually, in order for women to work, they had to hire someone to do the work, and hiring a Saudi worker would be unaccepted since it's a strict society. Housekeepers from different nationalities, mainly Indonesia, Philippines, Ugandans, Kenyans, came to those extremely religious private closed societies to work and live at their homes for 2 years with a 1 month vacation. Contract can be renewed if both accepted that. The family paid a big amount of money to cover expenses of bringing the housekeeper to their country, such as visa and flight ticket. Housekeepers gets a salary which agreed upon previously. She gets a private room in the house with a toilet. Throughout history, in such oppressive societies, men looking down at women, they will deny it. Now women are finally going to release this pressure on someone else, and because they pay the salary while the housekeeper lives at their home, they abuse her working hours. She works at days for 9 hours, then 11 hours, at times for 12 hours or more. So now working hours are non-stable. I think, sadly, some women will abuse the housekeepers out of insecurities. A strange woman, the housekeeper, is living in her home. Man of the house sees her working every day, then leaves, and every woman outside is covered in black. She begins to yell at her and shout out of these insecurities. Back in the 90s, some women created this myth: the housekeeper is secretly a witch and will seduce the husband and steal him. Also, they raise up their children in a way thinking the housekeeper is here to serve him or her, not just clean up the house. Children ask the housekeepers for a glass of water, then to bring their iPad from the room. It's like they have their servants. Housekeepers can't really keep things balanced. She's doing a lot of housework, serving the family in the most humiliating way, gets yelled at for no reason. Abuse occurs because she's not doing her work properly. Some families tend to hide the housekeepers' passports because they assume they might run off. I would run off if I was doing all this work being mistreated and humiliated. And imagine, women didn't have much rights previously. How about housekeepers? The housekeeper recruitment officers see them as a profit. They make money out of this. And SN Media thinks this topic should be mentioned more in our society. Housekeepers system should be changed. The government should stop promising housemaids that go for greener pastures and start to act accordingly, because many women are killed, yet they are always their family's hope. Kindly subscribe to our channel for more updates.